Welcome to the Ask Full Skinny podcast with a guest. I'm proud to present Shelle Howard. Shelle, welcome to the show. Please tell us more about yourself. What is your story?
So good. Thank you so much, Peter, for having me. As Peter mentioned, my name is Shelle Howard. I am actually the CEO and founder of College Ready. And College Ready was started because I have four children, two boys and two girls. And my firstborn came home from middle school and said, Mom, I know exactly what I want to do after high school. And I looked at him and I said, You know, I changed my major 5 times, right? And he shrugged and he says, Yes. And so I said, So what happened at school today? And he said, Well, the counselor came in and said we need to pick our classes for next year. And so I decided I want to be a brain surgeon and I want to go to an Ivy League school. And then he said, Will you help me? So that is how College Ready got started. And as a mother of four, all four of my kids have now gotten into college and graduated debt free. And I'm on a whole new world right now. I have two getting married this year. So I've gone from taking care of babies to launching teenagers to now saying good luck, right? To my oldest two. So I definitely have gone through the seasons of life.
That's amazing story. And I would like to dive deeper into this, let's call it transition from taking care of your children, basically helping them secure the future. We all anticipate that we need a college to get better position in our life, and so much of, let's say, colleges all around the world, but especially in the US, is connected to the debt that we incur during our studies. So can we talk first about how let's say that we are in a midlife, and we have children that would like to go to college, but we also have to take care of our pension. So we have to let's say, if our income is not sufficient, we will have to choose between our pension plan and our children's future. What is more important? And I believe um, this decision is not easy for most of us.
Mm-hmm.
And how should we go about that? And I really like how you put it, that all your children have finished college debt free, and there are so many grants available. And how should we start with that? And you mentioned Ivy League school, but there are also other really good schools. Um, and what's your take? How do we get funding for college? Should we encourage our children to work during college time, or should we um, or should they just focus on studies? Should they leave during the college and party like I did, or should they just take care of getting the credits that they need for the final degree? What's your take on that, and how does that? And I believe that we should, or I want to have your point of view. How should we encourage our children to do it? And how does that affect ourselves, or the parents? And is there a problem? Because we are, as you mentioned, and I believe that is also important. Our role in life changes when children leave, because
Sure.
we basically have to provide for them until they're at home, but then we should help them financially just to finish college. But after they finish and they get their employment, everything changes for us, because we don't have anyone that depends on us, uh, unless for emotional support. So um, can we talk about that? Is that all? Is um, is the moment that when children leave for college, is that also, or can that be also a trigger for midlife crisis? Because our role in life changes completely.
For sure. And I can kind of answer what you said a little bit backwards. And that is, I've seen many, many families and specifically moms who've really struggled in this area. And it starts actually very young when the student is in level 7, level 8, level 9, and they start to feel their child pulling away from them. And the child's pulling away because they're trying to prepare themselves to be independent. But the parent feels like they're losing their child. And so, for a lot of people, it will put them into some form of a crisis. It could be that they are trying to find themselves. It may be they're going to pick a new career. It may be that they are going to travel more, whatever that looks like. And I see a lot of times it's when that teenager starts to pull away and not depend on their family. So I can speak personally. When I was dropping off my son at Harvard, it was in the middle of summer and it was super hot in Boston. And we were getting, there were 5 of us, there were 5 roommates, so 5 sets of parents. And we were moving the kids in, and it was brutally hot. And I remember my son saying, "Mom, are you okay?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I mean, the weather's hot, but I'm going to be fine." He goes, "No, are you okay?" And I'm like, "What do you mean?" He said, "Well, all the other parents are really struggling, lots of tears, lots of sadness." And he goes, "You're so happy and you're so excited." And I said, "You know what, son? If you were on my couch at home doing drugs, I would be really, really sad right now. But I'm dropping you off for the most amazing time of your life, letting you launch." I go, "My job is done. Like, I'm leaving you in a wonderful school to be educated and to really spread your wings." And so I think it was really the first time I noticed that I was handling it different than other parents. Not better, not worse. The interesting thing is, as soon as I left, gave my son a big hug, and got to the airport, got on the airplane, I started crying terribly because I was going to miss him. And so I realized that that's a big part of why people go through a midlife crisis, is when they have built their life with their family and their children, and then a piece of it feels like it's being left or it's going away. I have many parents who will call me up and say, what do I do? Where do I go? How do I be this person all by myself?" And I always say, before your child leaves, find your passion, find your purpose. So when they do launch, you're actually in a wonderful place of excitement, of newness, of, wait, it's my time. And so College Ready was actually launched when my son was planning for college, and I went all in when he left for college. So it gave me opportunity of time. And sometimes when we're taking care of our family, the last thing we have is time. So getting to your question on debt, which is a big thing for us. It was very important when I helped all 4 of my children go through this process. So the first went to Harvard, and he got a full ride. So he actually got a full ride to USC, and Harvard matched it. And so why is that important? Because I did not want to use my retirement and count on my kids during retirement. That would have been a huge problem for me. And that was number 1. Number 2, her dream was University of Alabama. And I said, "What is wrong with California?" She says, "Mom, it's the full school experience. I want to go like Peter and party." And so I said, "Well, I'm not paying for you to go and party." And she goes, "Will you help me to get a scholarship?" And I said, "Now that I can do." And so she followed the College Ready plan, got her scholarship to University of Alabama. Off she goes. Again, child number two is very far from home. And I'm looking at myself thinking, what in the world am I going to do with all of this extra time? And I filled it very quickly with my passions and my purpose. And so choosing how you're going to navigate this season in life, I think is super important. And is it real that all of us are going to do it differently? 100%. Some people are going to go through sadness, some are going to go through joy. Some are going to be super excited to have all this time on their own, and others aren't going to know what to do with themselves. So, just like I work with teenagers to help them figure out who they are, what matters to them, and how they'll prove it to college, I tell families the same thing. When your child is getting ready to adult, the best gift you can do is to give them is to find your passion, find your purpose, and then when your child launches, you're ready for this new, exciting time in your life, which will help ease some of that transitional time. So, Peter, did I answer your question?
Yes, but I have so many more.
Okay.
So, college ready is not just about helping you or helping children or families find tuitions for college. You also mentioned that you help um, so the students are the future. So yeah, the students find their passion and present it to the college, so they would get a grant or a scholarship for that. Can you talk a bit more about how you help young people find their passion? And you also mentioned that the parents, when children leave, also have to find the passion. Can we talk more about the passion and how you see the passion and how you help people search for their passion? Because so many of us has or have we have lived basically according to societal expectations. For me, it was okay. You have to get a job in tech or financial industry, and we're gonna support you. And you have to be at least a C-level executive, or you need to be a board member if you're just gonna be an owner. And that is what you're gonna do. And I of course did it, and I was bored to death. And I'm a researcher by heart, so I like to research things, especially. Something either high knowledge in a sense that the latest scientific findings, and of course everything that is beyond science. That is my passion, but I didn't find that before I was 40, because until I was 40 I was completely how say overwhelmed by societal expectations. For me, I didn't find myself at all, even if so for the outside world I was a successful person with everything taken care of and perfect life and all this stuff, but inside I was empty. So it's like everything was boring, not exciting. Everything was stressful. I would even develop escapism and go to work like 12 hours a day and 15 hours a day, just not um, to meet myself. No, and when I crashed in burnout, I had this 4 pages of bucket list, and and the biggest challenge was like 80% of everything I could do. So I didn't have any reason I didn't do it before. It's just I was just postponing everything, and I just wanted more stress and stuff. So I'm really interested in how you help find young people before college, find their passion, and how you find midlifers or the parents find their passion when their kids leave for college. I would like to have your insight on that.
For sure. So I've done a lot of studying about this, and what I've learned is that most people go through life being told what to do versus really tapping into who they are and listening to their intuition. And so I'll start with teenagers because I know them best. Um, I I always joke, I'm like Peter Pan, I'll never grow up. I want to be a teenager forever. And so the first thing we do for students is we help them to figure out who they are. If you ask your teenager, who are you? They're going to look at you with big eyes like, hello, you know who I am. And that's a problem because they don't know how to answer it. Society and social media is really telling them what is acceptable and not acceptable. And so they get lost in, doing what is acceptable. And so what I do is I help them to reverse engineer that. And we start with having them write down the 10 things they are deeply passionate about. And some can only write down two. It's not like they can all just pencil it out really quick. So I give them a week to do that because some need a week to do that. From there, I have them write down 10 things that they advocate for, that they truly care about. They want to see changed. That is not people. We cannot change other people. So that's the only caveat. And so once they have their 10 passions and 10, I call them annoyances, then we sit down and we have a conversation. And the conversation goes something like, what are you passionate about? And they will just ramble off their list. And I said, now, out of all of those, what are you truly most passionate about? And then they're lost again. So there's these levels of depth. I call it intellectual curiosity from within. So being really curious about who you are. And I did this with all four of my own children just innately because when I was in college, I didn't know what I wanted to do. I didn't know what kind of career I wanted. I didn't know what I was going to do after. And so I read a book, What Color's Your Parachute? That was a great book. And then I read another book, Do What You Love and the Money Will Come. Again, the passion, the money, I'm like seeking it, trying to figure it out. I was doing it for myself. I didn't realize I was doing it to help other people going forward. And so after reading a lot of different books and a lot of different discussions, what I came upon is most people don't know their core values. And that is a very critical piece because if you don't know your core values, you don't know if you're going to be in alignment with what your career is. So Peter, like you talked about, the expectation of you were a C-suite person, and if your core value was travel, play, adventure, that would have been absolutely the opposite of a C-suite, right? And so I would have tapped in and say, okay, your core value is telling me that you want to be something with adventure. You want family is super important. Whatever that core value is, that doesn't change after level 8. So up until that point, yeah, you're kind of figuring it out. You're kind of just trying to grow up. But once you hit level 8 in school, you really do know what you like and what you don't like. You may not be able to articulate it, but you know if you're in that situation, you like or you don't like it. So once we help the student figure out their core values, their gifts, their talents, and what they advocate for, then we're able to give them a high school level assessment and help them understand, how do they learn? Do they have intellectual curiosity? Do they not? Do they like people? Do they not? Do they want to have a job where they just go to work and leave and don't have to think anymore about it? Or do they want to be an entrepreneur and think about it all the time? So it really comes down to helping that person get to know themselves first. Then they're ready to do the heavier lifting. But if you just jump to, I'm passionate about photography, so I'm going to be a photographer, which is what I did, you're like, oh, well, that worked out for a while and now I'm bored. So it's kind of like you're on this hamster wheel trying to find yourself if you don't do the work first and you just kind of wait and see. So with teenagers, once they find their core values, their gifts, their talents, and what they advocate for, Then we can show them, based on all of our assessment, our research on them, here are 3 careers that are a perfect match for you. And then they're like, whoa. And we talk about, is that a good match? Do you agree? And surprisingly enough, they all agree. Then we get into how important is money. Because some people may have a passion to help people, and maybe they want to go into the Peace Corps, or maybe they want to, feed the homeless or whatever that is, which is great, but that may not provide for a new Ferrari every year. So we're helping students to get clear on financial literacy. How much will it cost you to have this lifestyle? Because that's a reality. It's not something unless somebody else is footing the bill. And so then we start to talk about financial literacy, which is something this generation is really struggling with. From there, we talk about what kind of education will they need to get there. Is it a 4-year degree, 6-year, 8-year, no degree? Is it a trade school? What is it? And then we map it out. And so we take them step by step. It's all yours.
I have a question. I really like how you put the financial literacy, and this is a trick question. But I would like you to answer it. Is there so much student debt because of financial illiteracy? Because some people could postpone and wait for scholarship for another year or so, just not to incur the debt, but they just jump into it because they're financially illiterate, and then they have student debt, and they get by with a bit of credit card debt and stuff like that, and they somehow finish this college, but they are in debt for like 100,000, 120,000 by the time that they finish master's degree. So how much of the student debt is a direct consequence of financial illiteracy?
Wow, that is a very important question. And it's different in Europe than in the US. In Europe, my daughter, my fourth, went to the Czech Republic of Prague, AAU, American Anglo University, and got an international business degree. And that's when I became global company, because the research I did to help her find that perfect school was deep. And so what I figured out is she paid $27,000 a year for 3 years to get that degree. In the US, you can pay up to $100,000 a year. So that's graduating with $400,000 of debt. And if you're going in with a major like botany or philosophy or a very thoughtful major, but not a major that's going to get you into a career that has big pockets, big bank account, it is terrifying. And the problem is schools do not talk about it. Schools do not prepare our kids to be financially literate. I don't care if it's in Europe, globally, that is a big problem. If as a family you're not talking about it, they have no ability to understand what life is going to cost them. I talk to so many students every day, and what I find out is they don't know how much electricity costs. They know the cost of gas because it affects them, but they don't know things such as how much does it cost to buy a home? How much does it cost to save for retirement? How much does it cost for college? And so when they look at college, they just look at it as, okay, I'll figure it out, because they don't have the consequences of what that means, of how long they're going to need to not get a new car because their car is their college debt. So it's really a problem. And then on top of that, many parents are still paying off their college debt. And so now they're really struggling because they can't pay for retirement, putting away retirement. And so they already have their own debt. Now they're co-signing for their child's debt. And now we're on this wheel of debt. And now you marry somebody with debt, now you're double debted. So I talk to families all the time and say, we need to stop this. And how I did it with my own family is we talked about how much you'll make right after college. How much money? How long will it take you to pay off the loan that you're so quick to want to sign? In the US, you cannot get a loan without having assets, which means your 18-year-old cannot get a loan unless you co-sign for it. And even if they pass away, you still have to pay the loan. So this is a big, big problem. And so it is my mission to help families understand this. On the flip side, the families that are doing it well, they are coming through the College Ready Plan. Last year, we had 29 students earn over $10.3 million in scholarships. In the last 18 years, College Ready students have earned over $80 million in scholarships. Mm-hmm. So it really is about knowledge. It's about facing it head on and saying, does this make sense? Does this degree is it gonna get me where I want to go without taking on massive debt? And then having to figure out how long it's gonna take you to get out of debt until you can start that life you really want. So I look at it as, yes, it's financial literacy or lack of. It's also fear that if the parents don't co-sign that their child will not be successful, so they make that. It's also the parents feeling guilty that they didn't save enough money for college, so they go into debt. It's also that parent has their own debt, and they just think that's just part of normalcy. So I don't believe it's just one thing. I believe it's all of the above, and just not knowing there's other options. And that's where College Ready has been really successful at.
Okay, now before we wrap up, I would just like your insight how you help parents find their passion when children are already or are packing for college, and they will have so much time on their hand. So how you help them find the passion? So how you find them, let's say, avoid midlife crisis, because usually if you're not prepared, a midlife crisis will struck.
Sure. So I do it a little differently for parents. And this is not part of my College Ready plan, but when the parents come to me and they are distraught, can you please help me? Which a lot do. How I help them understand is, how important is money? That's got to play a piece in it. That's the reality that you cannot get away from. Unless you have somebody else paying the bills, you have to get real about, are you going to quit your career and travel the world? And that is your passion. Are you going to want to go back to school and get additional education because you want to pivot and maybe change what you thought you wanted to do? So once the parent gets clear on what they want, it is super critical that we help them understand why they want it. Is it something because they always wanted it and they just took a pause because the child needed them? Or maybe they just didn't know they wanted it when they were younger, and now they've had years of wisdom to be like, wait a minute, I actually want to do this. And so it's helping them to understand, yes, living your passion and getting paid is the ultimate. I feel very fortunate. I get to inspire teenagers and prepare for their future. That is my passion. People pay me for it. But I realize not every passion gets paid for. So is it going to be a hobby outside of your career, or are you going to change careers? Or what does that look like? Because as an adult, we don't have the luxury of getting a student loan while we're figuring it out, right? We don't have the luxury of putting life on pause. Life is going to happen, and it just depends how you can get what you want out of it. And so the number one thing I tell families or adults to do is to sit down and get clarity about, who are you? And who do you want to be? Because if you don't know who you are, it doesn't you'll never find your passion, because that passion has to connect to the person you are. So again, a passion could be a hobby. It doesn't have to be a career, but it can be. And so I would encourage families or adults, way before you're dropping off your child, as they are starting to pull back and become young adults and start to work their own path, that's the perfect time to start dabbling in. Oh, I've always wanted to try this. Oh, I've always wanted to do that. Instead of talking about it, go and do it. Go and do it. And then you'll know, either yes, going back to school was a great idea, or it's a lot harder than you remember it. So go and do the thing well before your child leaves and you're feeling empty.
Okay. Thank you for all these amazing insights. Before we leave, where can our listeners and viewers find you?
So, College Ready is a global company. If you go to our website, it's www.collegereadyplan.com. And the plan in that is very, very important. If you lack planning, you will get in debt. You will not find your passion. You will struggle to put all this together. Having a plan is the critical piece in all of this for both adults and for students. And so I would encourage you to go to the website. We help students from Europe come into the US and from the US and go out of the US. But most importantly is we're preparing teenagers for life and helping them get clear right now about what they want to do, what is the trajectory, how much education they need, and how they're going to pay for it. If you don't plan for it, you'll plan to fail, and that's where people get themselves in trouble. So collegereadyplan.com. Also, if you would like 30 minutes just to talk to me about how you can do this, it's collegereadyplan.info. So thank you, Peter, for having me. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you, Sheila. Thank you for all these insights.